What's up guys, Ryan here from Mud Gunner. Today's video is going to be a little bit more bougie. I have a little bit more expensive guns here, but I'm going to kind of get into that. And it's going to be a video kind of explaining what I think about spending a decent amount of money on an AR. So this video is specifically about ARs. It also relates to other guns as well, but it's going to be my thoughts on spending a good amount of money on an AR build. So I'm thinking like 3,000 to 5,000 range, and that does sound like a lot of money. If you don't have anywhere near that to spend, that is 100% okay. You can definitely get decent guns for way less than that. But this video, I'm going to mainly talk about that, and I am going to show some less expensive builds like this one. I'm into this one for about $1,000, so we'll kind of get back into that. But yeah, this video specifically talking what it's like when you have about $3,000 to $5,000 to spend and what you can potentially get with that. I have 4 rifle builds right here. They kind of cover different roles as far as an AR build goes. So we have short range, mid to long, and long range. And this is just kind of my thoughts on it, but let's get into the video. So I work for 2 gun stores, and one thing that I always ask people when they're shopping for guns and they don't necessarily know what they want is what kind of budget do they have? Because that really determines what I might recommend to them. If they have under $1,000 to spend, I'm going to recommend certain guns. If they have, 2,000 plus to spend, I'm going to recommend something completely different. And I have the means to do that because I do have experience with a lot of different price ranges of guns. And I would say that I can speak to it, from personal experience. Not everyone can. Some people do just talk out their ass, and I don't believe that's how it should be done. And there's times where I don't know anything about a gun, and I'll tell someone my thoughts without, and I'll tell them like, hey, I don't know anything about it, but this is just kind of what I think. And it's kind of up to them at that point to make a decision. But one thing I do really like asking people is what their budget is, and that really determines what I might recommend. So let's say theoretically you have $3,000 to $5,000 to spend on an AR build. That does open the doors significantly for you in almost every direction. You can go, CQB gun all the way up to a long range gun, and not even just in an AR. So you can spend $3,000 to $5,000 on like, a bolt action rifle, a semi-auto like AR-10. Like you don't even have to buy a 5.56 or anything with that. You could buy really nice guns with that, both in pistol and in rifle. But for today's video, I'm mainly talking ARs because ARs are one of my favorite guns to play around with and build up. And I'm not like a piece together kind of guy. A lot of times I'll buy just factory guns, which is what all these are, and then just build them up. But $3,000 to $5,000 does get you a lot of playroom with building a very nice high-end AR, and you can build it from the ground up if you want. What I like, for me specifically, is I'm not a gunsmith by any means. Like I can somewhat work on guns, but if they need any like deep work, like taking the barrel out of ARs, that's not something I've done, so I have to, ask for help, and luckily I know a lot of gunsmiths. But for you, let's say you're not a gunsmith either, I think buying a name brand AR, especially if you have that kind of money, buying a name brand AR gets you, I'd say, peace of mind as far as it's going to basically shoot out of the box. I'm not saying there's not going to be examples that don't, but for the money, you can buy any Daniel Defense or Q or LWRC and, take it to the range. I recommend cleaning and oiling before you take it out, but you can take them out to the range, and granted, they're going to most likely shoot. Now, with something like this, which this is a nice build, but this is a build. Every part was sorted and pieced together. You can spend, $1,000 to $1,500 on a really quality build, but that doesn't mean it's going to run the very first range trip out. And there's just, it's kind of like people that build cars. You can buy all the nice high-end name brand parts. You could put it all together. Doesn't mean it's going to run. So I think buying a name brand, or just a brand in general, it doesn't have to be name brand, but like buying a complete branded AR gives you a slight peace of mind of, hopefully they did their, R&D work on it, and it's going to shoot out of the box, which is what I would hope for in a gun. But yeah, so for $3,000 to $5,000, I'm going to just talk about like what I have here. There's thousands of AR manufacturers, so I can't possibly talk about every brand. These are just some of the ones that I like. This was my very first gun right here. This is a Daniel Defense. It's kind of been changed since I bought it. So it started life as a V5 lightweight, which is a 16-inch lightweight barrel with a 12-inch rail. I bought it when I was 18. I think at the time it was about $1,500. This one I bought brand new. I did layaway for it, so it took me about 3 months to pay it off. And I got the gun and my iron sights at the time, and that's all I had to start with. So my very first range trip out, I just had iron sights. If you're wondering why my front sight's on backwards, it's because the light's in the way. So as long as it's zeroed, it doesn't matter. Like it looks dumb, but it works. Rear sight, I would not put on backwards, but yeah. So I started out with the gun and the iron sights. I think at the time was like $1,700, and I was 18 at the time. So like I knew nothing about Daniel Defense. I wasn't, making a crap ton of money or anything. It's just I knew I wanted to buy a quality gun for my first gun because I wanted to make sure it was going to work, you know, right out of the box. So I did that, and then just over the years, again, this doesn't have to be like, you know, you have to spend $5,000 right up front, but over the years, I've built it up into this. When I turned 21, I SBR'd it, and I've done a whole video on this gun before, but basically, the gun, and I put a Geisley trigger on it, I changed the safety selector and the charging handle, but I think between all that, I'm just over $2,000 into the gun. And then as far as the optic setup goes, this is an EOTech and a magnifier. Let's say you have, you know, 2 to 25 to spend on the gun. You can really deck it out however you want. And then let's say you have 1,000, you know, or slightly over to spend on optics. You don't have to buy the magnifier. I like having it, but I don't use it as much as just the EOTech. So you can buy a very nice name brand optic between $500 and $1,000 for just like a single optic. If you want magnifiers, they do cost more, but you can get EOTech, Aimpoint, and Trijicon optics, which are all very nice optics, for $500 and up. And yeah, so that kind of opens the doors for this one. Again, I think... Hi, Loki. You got to chill here, buddy. This is Loki. And let's say you do have that, you know, 3 to 5 to spend. The order in which I would buy stuff would be the gun, obviously, and then some type of sight system. So I started with the iron sights, and then I did the EOTech next. And then I'd say after that, sling is a really good thing to have on your gun so you can shoot it and, you know, hold it to your body. And then a light for identifying what you're shooting at. Let's say you want to do night shooting or using it for a self-defense role. Having a way to see what you're aiming at in the dark is helpful. And then if you have that kind of money, you can really think about doing a suppressor. You don't have to do a short barrel rifle, which is what I did on this. Because again, when I turned 21, I registered this as a short barrel rifle. So now it's got a 12.5-inch barrel. But if you have 3 to 5 grand to spend on a gun, having a suppressor is, honestly, it's really enjoyable. It makes it more fun to shoot. It does add a little bit of wear, but I haven't broken any parts on this gun. So yeah, adding the suppressor makes it quieter, obviously. It's not like movie quiet. That's where this comes into play. But I think the suppressor really rounds it off because I have my optic system, I have my sling, I have a pretty nice trigger, I have a light, and then I have it suppressed. That is basically, you know, everything I could need on any rifle. And that goes for basically all of these. Like, I don't need anything else. You can add more stuff, but I don't need anything else. That makes it usable in almost any condition. And yeah, when you're talking guns, you don't also want to just talk the gun itself because there's more that go into play. Ammo, mags, you know, kit setup if you want to take it, you know, from like a tactical viewpoint, have a belt setup, plate carrier setup. It gets very expensive, but again, we're just talking just the gun. If you have 3 to 5 grand to spend on the gun, that is one setup that you could do. That gets you basically top of the line in anything you want. The nicest lights, the nicest trigger. Geisley makes a good trigger, and you could buy very affordable Geisleys that work very well, and you could buy very expensive Geisleys that, you know, if you're untrained, you're not going to know the difference between them. So just, you don't have to spend $250 plus on a trigger. You could buy their like $150 trigger, and if you're new to it, it's going to perform just perfectly for you. I'm okay if a beginner person wants to spend $3,000 plus on their first gun, because that's what I did. But just remember, spending $3,000 to $5,000 does not buy you the skill in just owning it. Now, spending $3,000 to $5,000 on courses will get you the skill, you know, more than the guy that just spends that much on the rifle. So yeah, if you're going to spend that much on a gun, you know, get out and train with it. And I know that's like beating a dead horse. Grandthumb talks about it all the time, but I really do believe that, like, most people, you know, and myself might be included in this, but I do shoot a lot. Most people do not need to spend this much on a gun. If you only shoot once a year, you do not need to spend 3 to 5 grand on a gun. I'm not saying you can't, you know, it's America, you do what you want, but you really don't need to. And that's where doing a build like this comes into play. This one I've just been playing around with, but I am into this gun for about $1,000, and that's sourcing everything secondhand. These optics, this is a Vortex Strike Eagle. You can find these with mounts right now for $300. Like, our store keeps getting like filled with them. Like, we'll have 4 at a time with mounts for about $300. And this Strike Eagle is a very usable optic. I've ran one of these on my other guns for the tactical games twice, and that gun got dropped, it got like beat, and that Strike Eagle held up just fine. So you can get this optic for about $300, and then a nicer build like this, anywhere from like maybe $7,000 to $1,000. Again, I'm into the whole setup for about $1,000, but it's an arrow upper and lower. It is a Geisley trigger, a ballistic advantage barrel. I had this POF bolt carrier group lying around, but yeah, it's nice parts, but it's a super affordable gun, and I'd have no problem taking this to a class and running it. I am missing a light and sling on there because it is still just a build, but you spend another 200 bucks, you get a stream light and a pretty decent sling. So you don't have to spend, that kind of money to get quality. Again, if you're only going to shoot a few times a year, or even if you just want to get into it and you don't want to spend that much, do something like this. Like, it's very affordable. As far as lower price point optics goes, Hollow Sun, Vortex, those are really good ones, but we'll kind of stick with this for a sec. But yeah, so this is just one option you can get for that kind of price range. And honestly, spending that kind of money, you can get a can for almost any gun. We'll do this one next. So this is a very good CQB gun. If I had to dedicate this as a roll, this is like, anywhere from CQB out to 300-400 yards. It's a 12.5-inch barrel, but it can shoot 300 to 400 yards, no problem, especially with the magnifier. It makes it very doable. I wouldn't try to shoot a squirrel at 400 yards with it, but I did shoot a javelina. I went hunting with that last year. I shot a javelina at 113 yards, and I had 23 pounds of meat. So very usable setup. As far as close range, like CQB, that can also get you into something like this. So this is a 300 blackout. It is a Q Honey Badger, and I don't know exactly what these are going for right this second. I want to say the gun might be around $3,400 for the gun with the suppressor. So now when you're getting into that realm, suppressors and SBRs, there is a wait. So it took me 10 months to get the gun and the suppressor. So just fair warning. But again, if you have that kind of money to spend, maybe you buy a cheap AR to hold you over for the 6 to 12 months. But yeah, I bought this, took 10 months for the can and the gun to clear. But yeah, the gun itself with the can, I want to say is under $3,500. And then I'm running a Trijicon RMR. So it's like a $500-ish red dot. You can buy them used. So I bought the gun new, but I bought the red dot used. I think I paid like maybe around $400 for the RMR with this American Defense mount. And then if you're in that kind of realm of a CQB gun, maybe you have money to get into night vision. But this one I do run for night vision, so I have an IR Surefire light here. So this does IR and white light, which is just, the IR is for night vision specifically. Same thing with this laser. I don't believe there's a good use for a laser during the day. I just don't think it's needed. Spend the money on a light and just get really good using the light and the red dot. I mean, if you're close enough to use the laser without aiming through the dot, you're close enough to point and shoot. Just my opinion on it, but this is mainly for night vision shooting. So yeah, I mean, for $3 to $5 grand, you can get a really nice suppressed 300 blackout with a good light and an optic. If you have that closer to $5 grand, then you do maybe the night vision stuff, but Q is really good because they come with nice triggers, they basically come with everything that I would change on a gun. So I haven't changed anything on this gun. I've just added my sling, my optic, and my light setup. But yeah, it comes with a high-end trigger, comes with the fancy safety, fancy charging handle. So that is another thing that you can do with that kind of budget, is build the ultimate CQB gun. This is the quietest rifle I own, 300 blackout. One thing I would recommend with 300 blackout is don't buy it unless you're going to suppress it. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I actually am saying you shouldn't. If you want to shoot it unsuppressed, that's fine, but that's an expensive round to shoot unsuppressed, and it's not always reliable in every system. This gun is completely R&D'd from the factory, so this gun is built from the ground up to be a suppressed SBR, so it runs like butter. I've never had an issue with it. I've shot thousands of rounds through it, and this is the quietest CQB gun I own, and I love it. So another thing that you can do with it. Now let's say, close range isn't your style, or maybe you want something more like what the military might use, right? Like you can do clone rifles, and there's nothing wrong with clone rifles. That would be like cloning something that certain military or law enforcement use. That's kind of what this is. So this is also a Daniel Defense, and I really like Daniel Defense. They were my first gun, and I have like 6 of them now. So fair warning, but I bought all of them. That was the only one I bought new. The other 5 I bought used. But this is an M4A1, so it's a 14.5-inch barrel. Also a high-end gun. I changed the grip and stock, the trigger, the safety, the charging handle. So I think in just the gun on this, with like those internal accessories, maybe $2,400-ish. If you did it all brand new, I did not do it all brand new. So $24, $25 brand new. And then about 12 to 15 on the scope setup. I bought this used too. So again, if you have that kind of money, you don't have to buy everything new. Vortex has an unconditional, unlimited lifetime warranty. I bought it secondhand knowing that if I throw this against the wall, they'll replace it. So I don't mind buying used on that. Suppressors, you basically always have to buy new. It's a pain to buy them used, and there's not really there's not a market for used suppressors. So if you buy it, plan on keeping it, because this is $1,000 brand new. If you were to sell it used, you might only get like 500 bucks, and then it's a pain to buy. So yeah, if you buy a can, plan on keeping it. But yeah, so this is a 14.5-inch barrel with a 1-to-6 power optic on there. So good for close range, out to distance. Also running a Surefire light. I'm basically running Surefire lights on all these except this one, because this is just designated long range. But yeah, very different build than the last two, but in that same kind of ballpark of what you might spend on it. So this one I'm running a Surefire suppressor, and a 14.5-inch barrel can push 500-600 yards. I'm not much of a long range shooter, so I can't attest to that, but there are plenty of people that shoot that distance with guns like this, no problem. So yeah, very cool build. A little bit heavier than the other two, but it gets you, like, this would be a really cool like apocalypse build kind of gun, because at this barrel length, I know some people use like 5.56 to hunt deer and whatnot. I can't say much to that, but I have heard people talk about it. And if I had to shoot a deer with this, I'd rather do it with this barrel length than that, and the right rounds. So yeah, like your potential for, hunting purposes or distance or, just a variety of things is going to be better with a longer barrel, and then a nicer magnification. So this is a 1-to-6 power. This is basically a 1-to-3 power with the magnifier. That's just a straight 1 power. So, and then the other end of the spectrum would be a designated long range gun. So again, I'm not much of a long range shooter. I have been building this one up over time. With this, I don't plan on putting a sling or a light on there, because it's really just set up as a long range gun. And then this one's piston driven. So LWRC makes really good piston rifles, and then also suppressed. This has a Dead Air Sandman S, and then it's got a bigger scope. Now this scope is 100% overkill, but I got it because it color matched the gun. This is a 5-to-25 power Burris scope. It's got a Magpul bipod, but also has a Geisley trigger. I basically run Geisley triggers in most stuff. This one has a POF trigger, but yeah, this is just, if you want to get into long range shooting with that kind of budget, you can do something like this. This is an 18-inch DMR from LWRC. So 18 to 20-inch guns would be decent for, I know some people shoot like those barrel lengths out to 800 plus yards. Again, I'm not capable of that as of right now, but I've kind of been building this one up to like want to get into long range shooting. And with 5.56, it'll be a little bit cheaper than doing it with 308 or different calibers. So still a little bit more expensive. I think you're going to pay $1 or more per round for really nice match grade stuff, but gets it a little bit more affordable and still in an AR platform. And then if you wanted to really kind of go all out, you could buy different uppers, so you can have a long range upper or a short upper. You can SBR the lower and have multiple uppers for it, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, so I mean, that just shows like you can go CQB all the way up to, almost 1,000-yard gun in that budget. So that's just kind of the stuff that I wanted to talk about on like what you might be able to do with a budget like that. Again, if you're kind of a beginner just getting into it, you don't need to spend that much. We just got my girlfriend her first gun. I can't say we because she bought it herself. Now you guys are gonna judge a little bit, and that's okay. This is my girlfriend's first gun. This is a Troy AR pistol. She bought it used through the store that I work at. It was like a $500-600 gun. And this is gonna be perfect for her because she does not shoot as much as me. My coworker gave her this mag the day she bought it, which is like an anime mag. And then she already had this Demon Slayer character, so we just zip tied it to it. Again, it's not practical. It is just for fun for her. And she is still a beginner with ARs, so she doesn't know much, and that's okay. Like, it's got Magpul sights on here. I just got those for her. At some point, she's going to get an aim point optic for it. We're going to get her a light. But yeah, she's into this for, well under 1,000 right now, and it'll be a good first gun for her. It's lighter weight and shorter for a girl, because her carrying something like this not going to be as practical. If you're a girl and want to get into it, not saying you can't do that, but shorter, lighter guns are going to be a little bit easier to get into. And like my mindset on it is like, obviously I take it a little bit more serious. Like, I really like to think self-defense mindset. She is not coming at it with that as of right now, but I doubt this will stay on here forever. And this is just a magazine, so it doesn't matter if it's pink, anime, or if it says, president stuff on there. Like, a magazine is a magazine. As long as it works, I don't care. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very usable AR for $1,000-ish when it's set up and done, and that works for her because she does not shoot as much as me, so I don't think she needs to go drop that kind of money on a gun, but you know, she might down the road. So yeah, just kind of wanted to talk about, you know, the potentials with a budget like that. Obviously, the sky's the limit. You can do so much with it. Everyone's going to have their own recommendations. Some people might still say, you know, build it from the ground up, and that's fine. I just know that, like, when I pick these guns up, when I first get them, I know they'll work, so I trust that, and I don't mind, like, changing triggers should not determine the whole function of the gun. Sometimes adding suppressors can change it, but me adding cans to all these guns, they work the same as they did out of the box. I hope this video has been helpful for you guys. I know I kind of went all over the place, but I mean, you can see, like, you can go all over the place with build on an AR specifically, and the sky's the limit. So just, you know, do some research, watch other YouTube videos, and if you have anything specific you want to build, like, internet is a great source. That's how I kind of, like, I find, like, motivation for building ARs from watching YouTube, from looking at pictures online. Like, there is so much information out there. There's, like, Facebook groups where people post their builds all the time, and I find builds all the time that I'm like, oh, I want to do, like, that same build. It just looks cool. And I am past the point of, like, practical, right? Like, you don't necessarily need this many guns, but I'm a collector myself. I shoot as much as I can, and I work in the gun industry, so I have access to guns every single day. It's hard to work in a gun store and not want to spend money every single day, so that's where I'm at. If you are a little bit more limited on what you can do, that's why I don't mind showing you this, because, you know, you can build it for whatever role you might want to fulfill. So don't worry if you don't have the budget to do, you know, all 4 different guns. Like, I've been building these up over years. This is not an overnight thing. And secondhand is going to be your friend if you're trying to be a little bit more cost effective. Right now we're in a market where I would say ARs are a little bit lower in price, and with it being election year, they're most likely going to go up later in the year. So if you know you want it, you know you want to build it, start the process now. The gun is going to be the thing that's harder to get later on. Relatively speaking, accessories are always readily, well, for the most part, readily available. So get the gun that you want and then work from there. You don't have to do it all at once. But thank you guys for watching. If you have any comments, comment down below. Maybe other people can help you as well. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions too on, like, maybe builds you've done and what kind of price range you try to stay around. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.